He's gonna go. He's gonna fight me. He's a big He thinks he's awesome.
Hey everybody, this is me, the Undead Viking, and this is Lizard Wizard. Now, oh man, COVID. I'm going to look forward to looking back at these videos long after the fact and remembering this period of time and just reminding myself of just how absolutely insane this period of my life was. And for that matter, how insane it has been for a lot of you, I'm certain, as well. But regardless, this is a video that I have been working on off and on for a while now, and I feel bad that it's coming out right here at the very end of the Kickstarter that my friend, and I'll get into that a little bit, my friend Glenn and Forbidden Games has, and Simon, and I mean just the whole Forbidden Games team. Like they're people that I know personally, people that I've spent a great deal of time with, and I do feel bad that I haven't been able to adequately make a good video for this fantastic game until now. But here you go. Hopefully you are looking at this here as the campaign is finalizing, and you're using this to confirm your suspicions that this game is going to be fun and it's going to be amazing. If I'm somehow reaching you and you haven't heard of this game at this point and you've just seen it now, I urge you to get in on this game and pledge for it. I'm assuming Glenn is going to use a pledge manager. He's done that in the past. So perhaps maybe you've just heard about this and the pledge manager is opened and you wanted to check out and see what I thought. But regardless, that already long intro short, this game is fantastic and it's amazing. And if you are a fan of other Forbidden Games releases, like Raccoon Tycoon, I'll look right over here. You can't see what I'm looking at, but I mean, like all of them are over there, and like or Railroad Rivals, another game of theirs that I really enjoy. If you are a fan of those games, you're going to be really enjoying this one as well. But I'm going to talk about that and more. Just a quick thing. I wasn't paid anything for this particular video. I'm not getting any compensation at all. But I do want to say that Glenn Drover, it was like a personal joy of mine because of the fact that I had played several of his games before I ever met him. And I actually at one point got invited to his home in Chicago, and I spent a great deal of time with him, and I consider him a close personal friend. So if you want to weigh that in into like how this game plays and my reactions to the game, by all means, I just wanted to kind of give you that as a just full disclaimer, if you will, and you can go from there. Anyway, so that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how this game plays. This game is a hodgepodge of different mechanisms that allow players to basically collect, and they're going to be collecting wizards to add to their wizard team. They're going to be building towers for those wizards to stay in. They're going to be researching spells to give to those wizards to cast. You're going to summon familiars to have do different processes for them. But along the way, because it is a Glenn Drover game, there's a really awesome economic engine that exists in this game, where there is going to be a supply and demand of different magical reagents that basically kind of like stocks that you're going to be collecting and selling and what have you, that you're going to have to pay attention to and maximize as the game goes on. But all that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the gameplay. I'll show you how the game is run, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts on Lizard Wizard. All right, awesome. All right, so this is Lizard Wizard. As I said, this is a game that is combining a lot of different mechanisms that are pretty common in board games today, but it is combining them in a very cool and puzzly way that I very much enjoy. But I'll talk a lot about that in my final thoughts. Just as always aside, this is a prototype that I was sent, so this may not look like what the final game is going to look like once it is published. For example, like I think I have some like scythe coins basically to represent the mana coins. I'm using some old dragon coins that I have to represent the gold coins that you'll collect as the game goes on. So just keep that in mind as you're watching. Just so you can see what you're looking at here. We have several different decks of cards. We have magical reagent cards, we have dungeon cards, we have familiar cards, and then familiar cards are also located here and here. These are familiars that you can collect. We have tower cards. I should mention that both the tower cards and the familiar cards, as the game progresses, like there's costs involved as the game progresses. The familiar cards, like there's a 5 on those and there's like a 25 on this. The costs for like the familiars increase as the deck depletes. The same thing can be said for the cost for the towers as the game depletes, and that is the decks are actually set up in that way to increase as the game goes on. We have wizard cards, which are located here. You will have auctions that will allow you to recruit wizards. Again, I'll talk about that in just a little bit. And then we have a spell cards. And I'm just going to talk about spell cards really briefly, just so you understand how those work. So there are different actions that will allow you to cast spells. When you collect reagents, you're able to cast spells. When you research a spell, you're able to cast a spell. When you select familiars, you have the option of casting spells. Spells come in 3 different kinds, and I'll talk more about this when I get to the research spells action. And I kind of put these on purpose in this case. You have spells that have a 1x, which means they can be cast once and then they are discarded. When I say discarded, they aren't like gotten rid of. You will keep spells because spells can be worth points at the end of the game. You have spells that are going to have this recycle symbol, which you probably can guess once those are in play, they stay in play. They provide ongoing effects. For example, this particular spell here has the recycling aspect on it, and it gives you +1 reagents whenever you are gathering reagents. So just like an ongoing leveling up kind of aspect to that particular spell. And then we have spells that have this little arrow on them. The arrow is not a 1x, meaning that you get to keep the spell after you cast it, and it isn't a spell that is kept in play constantly. Instead, these particular spells, once you cast them, you have to activate them again, and I'll talk more about that as it goes, but you don't actually discard them. All right, so that being said, once you set the game, and you will use less cards in some situations if you have less than 4 or 5 players. I have set the game up in this case for like if I was playing a 4 or 5 player game. Each person is going to get 3 of these reagent cards, and also we're going to start with some mana coins. The mana coins are used for purchasing things. So when I reference coins, you're in like when you say, oh, we're going to have an auction, we're going to auction with our mana. When you purchase research a spell, you're going to use your mana to get that. When you get a familiar, you're going to use mana to get that. So that is how that works. However, we do have these gold coins, and gold coins are worth victory points at the end of the game. So if you can collect gold, that's good, right? Because they're going to be worth victory points. But however, as you notice on the towers here, you can see that there is that little gold coin there. You have the option of spending those coins, those victory points, to get towers. So there are 2 different types of coins, and you should just kind of keep those separate. All right, so the way this game will progress is that each person will take an action on their turn. Then it will pass. Then the onus of the action will pass to the person on the left, and you'll just continue until the game is over. This game concludes not after a set number of rounds or turns. It concludes once we've depleted a deck. So once a deck is out, then we finish up that action. And if the game would say, put more cards onto the table, because like, say I've taken a wizard, I'm supposed to take a wizard and place it back onto the table, but I can't, then the game is over, and we're going to figure out how many points each person has. I do like that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in my final thoughts, but in certain games, it's really cool to have that kind of organic end to a game where like the players themselves will determine that. In some games, a static end is warranted, but in this, because gamesmanship has a lot to do with this game, I should say gamesmanship has a lot to do with most games, but in this case, being wily and outthinking your opponents, as well as coming up with a cool little, like, not really an engine build, but definitely like a synergistic build to your set collection, will get you your victory. All right, so I'm just going to kind of go through the different actions that you can do on your turn. Remember, you get one of these actions normally. Haha, I'm kind of hinting at something here in the future. But normally you take one action and then the next person goes. All right, so in this case, if we're taking an action, what will happen is that, like, for collecting reagents, collecting reagents is one of is the action that doesn't cost you anything, as far as like having to spend mana to do it or anything like that. Each player will start with 3 of these collect reagents cards, and on these cards there are 2 different portions. There's a top portion which tells you what you can gather, and then there's a bottom portion there that tells you which of those particular reagents you're going to increase in value. At the beginning of the game, there's this kind of, well, there is this economic supply and demand kind of stock exchange thing going on with these different cubes representing the 7 different types of reagents that you're going to collect. But it's not necessarily the reagents you collect that are going to increase in power. So in this case, this particular card says Mandrake Root, Sulfur, Horn, and Eye of Newt are your options for collecting reagents. Now, you're only at first, you can increase these by having certain spells in play, like remember that leveling up I was talking about? You're only allowed to select 3 of those. And you can't double up. You can't say, oh, I'm going to collect 3 Horn that's on there. No, that's not an option. You have to pick 3 of the ones that are available, and you can't double up. Some of the cards, like this Gather Resource card, you can see has 2 Eye of Newt on it. So that's a card that would allow you to collect 2 Eye of Newt with those 3 actions if you want to. Once you've collected those 3, and let's just take 3, I'll take Horn, I'll take Sulfur, and I'll take Eye of Newt, like so. Now the bottom of that tells me to increase the value of Foxglove by 2 and Eye of Newt by 1. So we're just going to take that little cube, and we're going to go like that. Done. We've processed that magical reagent card. This card we go ahead and get rid of, and then we're just going to collect another magical reagent card and place that into our hand. Once you're done collecting the reagents that the card has told you to do so, you then have the option of casting a spell if you have one in your possession that you have not cast yet. Normally when you collect a spell, you have them face down in front of you like so, but if you have the right number of reagents and you want to cast that spell, like this one would take 2 Eye of Newt, so let's say I had these 2 Eye of Newt, I'd have that, I could flip it over, I could cast that spell, and then take the action that is located on that spell. And there are other times when you can cast the spells too, and I'll talk about those once we get to that point here in the future. All right, so recruiting wizards is up next. As you can see, we have these 2 options available to us right here. Wizards, a couple things before we dive into the actual how you recruit them. The top left of each wizard has a reagent listed. If you have a wizard that has a particular reagent and you gather that reagent, that wizard helps you, and he'll gather an extra reagent of that type for you. So that's one of those, once again, a synergy type of thing that you'll have going forward. Also on the top right of each of these wizards, there is a type of magic they have. If you are able to connect that and put them into towers that match their magic, they'll be worth more points. Also, spells have that exact same symbol in the top right as well, and those spells will be worth more if you can connect them with tower wizard combos at the end of the game. As I said, this is a set collection game, and paying attention to those sets and trying to capitalize on those sets is important. All right, so when you decide you want to recruit a wizard, you're going to point to the wizard you want to recruit, and you're going to have a bid. This is an open bid, meaning that you don't take like a certain number of your coins and have them in your hand like this, and then everybody turns over at the same time and sees how many coins each person has. What it is instead is like saying I bid 5 for that wizard. The person on your left then says I bid 7, and then the next person clockwise says a number, and so on and so forth until everybody but one person has dropped out. Once you drop out of the bidding, you can't dive back in, so you can't say, somebody says 11, you say, it's too much, I'm out. Then it gets back to you again. You know what, actually, I'll go to 16. You can't do that. You can't come back in after the fact. Now, you might be wondering, what if you choose recruit? Let's say I wanted to recruit this wizard, and then somebody else grabbed it, and I wasn't able to get it. And then once that's done, we take another wizard, and we place that into that spot. But it was my turn, and I didn't get anything. So what we can do in that situation is that person who said recruit a wizard and didn't get a wizard can now take another action. And it doesn't have to be to recruit a wizard. It can be anything, but I could say I want to bid for this particular wizard, and then we do the whole process again, and maybe I finally win that one, and I'm going to take it, and I'll just grab some coins, and I paid that much for it, and I put that back, and now I have this wizard in my employ. And after that is said and done, we'll take another wizard, and we'll place another one down. So when the next player goes, they have an option of 2 again. Pretty straightforward, but it is always, once again, that gamesmanship I'm talking about, like trying to figure out what people are going to bid for certain things. I should mention that your mana and also your gold are kept secret during the game, so people can't actually look and see what like your max bid can be, which is a very important part of the game. Being able to, like, you have to outthink your opponent, not just look and do a quick little addition subtraction story problem and determine what you want to do. All right, so that is recruiting wizard. So you can also transmute, as an action, you can transmute reagents that you have into mana. So let's just, for the purpose of this thing, I'm going to give myself these 3 Foxglove, and I'm going to increase the Foxglove to a level of 8 as far as it's worth. On my turn, as an action, I can select one particular resource. So I'm going to select the Foxglove. I can select as much of that as I want or as little of that as I want. And I can take it and I can turn it back in. And I can take the current value of that Foxglove, which is 8, and I can convert that into mana. So that would be 24 mana. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to take these 2 10s. I'm going to take these 4 mana, and now I have those to be able to spend later. Since I did that for 3, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the value of that Foxglove by 3. So now the next person, if they want to trade in Foxglove, won't be able to trade in for 8. They can only trade in for 5. This is something you're going to be doing quite a bit of, because having a ready pool of mana to be able to be involved in bidding, to be able to purchase research spells or get familiars, is a very important aspect of the game. All right, So now, next thing we're going to talk about is researching spells. So spells are down here in the tableau. As I said, I've already talked about the different types of spells. When you decide to take a spell, what you will do is you will just pay the mana cost for that. As you can see, like that one, like let's say I wanted to have this spell, which says increase the mana value of a reagent by 3 before converting. It's a pretty powerful thing that basically will help me get money or more mana as the game goes through. I'd pay the 5 to get that, and then I would take that spell, and as I said, I would place that face down in front of me until a time in which I could actually cast it. So I'm going to take another spell, and I'm going to place it and put it into play. So the one thing I want to mention is that once you've taken a spell, and this one is, the cost of that was 3 toadstools and a Foxglove. So let's just say, once again, cheat a little bit, just give me those resources like so. Once you've researched a spell, you have the option of casting the spell you just researched if you have the necessary resources to do so. So if I had these, I could go ahead and turn those in, and I could cast that spell. Now, if I had a different spell, say like in the exact same situation, I had this spell as well. Remember, it's 3 toadstools. I couldn't choose this one instead. I had to choose the one that I just researched in order to be able to cast that. But that's a really good way that if you have the right resources, you can get a spell into play really quickly if a good option is available to you. Building a tower is another action. As this deck of tower cards is right here. You can choose the top one. There isn't a selection of them. You're only going to have the one that is on the very top. So in this particular case, this particular Ivory Spire, it says you can either spend 1 Mandrake Root or pay 1 gold to take that. So once again, let's cheat and let's give myself a gold coin and say I had that. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take that tower. And so what I would do is I would just go ahead and select that particular tower. I would place it down. Notice I'm being clever, and these 2 guys are matching up like so. And I would pay that coin. If I had a Mandrake Root in my employ as well, I'd be able to spend that Mandrake Root instead of the coin, which might be a better choice for me because of the fact that the coins are going to be victory points at the end of the game. Once you've taken the tower, you go ahead and take the next tower card and you turn it over and make it available for the next player. So as I said, these towers, the tower cards are going to like increase in cost. Like you can see towards the bottom of the deck, this one would cost 4 toadstools or 3 gold coins to purchase. So as the game goes on, they become more and more expensive to get. So it might be a situation where you might want to get towers at the very beginning if they happen to match up with the different wizards you have. It is important to note that at any given time, you're only allowed to have 10 reagents in your supply, but for each tower you collect, you increase that number by 1, basically giving you more storage. So something to think about as you collect these. All right, so here we go. This is the final action that you have, and it might be the most fun because of the fact that it kind of leads to other things. So that is summoning familiars. If you choose summon a familiar, you're going to have 2 options available to you. Once again, these familiars are going to have these icons associated with them. They also are going to cost a certain amount of mana. These cost 5. Now, when you select a mana, you can basically use, you have to use it immediately. Select the familiar, I should say. You have to use them immediately, and so there will be certain things that you can do. So you can enter the dungeon, which I'll talk about here in just a little bit, because familiars are the only things that are able to like figure out how to enter the dungeon. Each one of these cards will have, like this one says, collect 3 horn and cast a spell. So it'll allow you to collect some reagents and once again cast one of your spells that you've previously researched, if you so desire. Or you can use them to gain money. So like this one says, gain 2 gold for every conjuring card you have. And like conjuring is this particular symbol you have. So if you had a lot of that particular symbol and you collected that, you would then be able to use that to cash in, get a bunch of gold, which once again is victory points at the end of the game. I like familiars because they kind of count on having like basically timing wise, it's important to get them while you can get them, and also make sure you get them when they're valuable. I should also mention the last thing that you can do when you take a familiar is that you're allowed to clear off the spell cards. And then once you've cleared off the spell cards, you take all 4 of them, you ditch them, and then you can replace them with an extra 4. And then you're allowed to select one of the spell cards that is placed down for free. So you don't have to actually double pay. So you'd pay the 5 mana to get the familiar. You'd clear off all 4 of these. Let's just do that. So you'd clear off all 4 of these. Maybe there's a spell. Maybe none of the spells are, you don't like any of the spells that are there. Maybe you think there's a spell in there that would really help an opponent and or whatever. So you'd take and you place 4 new spell cards down like so. And then you're going to be like, hey, I've got a lot of wizard cards. I like this. And I have a lot of conjuring things. I'm going to go ahead and I want to take this one because it says wizard cards are +1 victory point. And so I would take that spell card for free and I would just claim it immediately. Casting a spell works just as when you collect the reagents that the card tells you, casting a spell works exactly the same. So other than that, entering the dungeon. So this dungeon deck, and I'm just going to kind of pull it up here. The dungeon deck here is kind of a push your luck aspect of the game. So what it is that when you send your familiar to enter the dungeon, you will turn cards over. And so and as long as there's treasure cards, you're sitting good. So in this case, that's a treasure. That's good. Here we have a card that says 2 gold. That's good. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Now, at any point, you can say, I'm done. I stopped, and I could just keep the treasure cards that I collect, and then immediately turn in any gold cards I have for the gold that I've collected. But if I wanted to go again, okay, I'm still good. 1 more gold, and then I'm going to turn another card over. I'm feeling good about myself. And the reason why, I got an orc. So that's bad. It's considered to be like a monster or a hit, basically. Now, I can stop still. I'm not in danger of losing just yet. If I stop now, I can still collect what I have. The thing is that if I turn another card over, and if I get another monster, I am going to, unfortunately, lose everything that I've gained. So I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm still feeling pretty good. Okay, I got emeralds. That's good. Oh, man, should I stop? No, I'm going to keep going. Oh, man, another gold. That's good. Okay, I'm going to turn 1 more over. I'm still feeling... Oh, dang it. I got a bugbear. So now I ran into a monster. Well, that stinks. So what'll happen then is that we're going to take all of these cards, and I don't get any of the treasure, and then we're going to shuffle them back into the deck. Shuffle the entire deck again, and then put that deck down for the next person that wants to enter the dungeon. So the thing is that if and that includes like the treasure cards. They aren't like discarded or anything like that. But if I had stopped, let's say I had stopped after, I gotten all these, and before I got the bugbear, I stopped, and I said, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to chance anymore. I would take we take the treasure cards. I would get the gold immediately, and I would take the other like treasure cards that are associated. But I would take the monster, and I would put it back into the deck and reshuffle the dungeon deck again. Meaning that as the game goes on, the dungeon deck becomes more and more dangerous because more and more treasure cards are being removed, and there are just there's more monsters just in there, in a ratio to the actual treasure that you can possibly get. So that keep in mind, if you do take the dungeon choice, that if a lot of people have taken the dungeon choice before you, it's going to be more and more dangerous, and you might want to, as far as your luck, as far as the luck that you press, you might want to reduce that and keep that in mind. Once again, like the gamesmanship of the game comes into play. All right, so that is the actions. Those are the things that you can do when you play Lizard Wizard. Here is the game's over, and how do we figure out the scoring? So the biggest thing here is the set collection and also the gold coins. For every gold coin you have, you're going to get a point for that. So just total those up, and that's the total amount of points you're going to get from your gold. For every Lizard Wizard that you have that has a tower for them to stay in, it's worth 5 points. It doesn't matter if they match or not. These two happen to match, but if they happen to match, great, but because that'll be worth 10 victory points actually. But if you just have a home for your Lizard Wizard, then, or Wizard Lizard, or whatever you want to say it, then you are going to get 5 points for that. Now, for every spell card that matches, so every one of these spell cards that you have that has a matching type that matches up with a matching tower and wizard combo is going to be worth 3 victory points. But any wizard or tower card that isn't matched is going to be worth 1 victory point then as well. Also, if you have there are certain spell cards that will allow you to score certain points, like end of game scoring. You would total those up. And then your dungeon items, like whatever, not the gold, but the actual like rubies and whatever that you collected, as long as you have the most of that type, or tied for the most of that type, you'll get 10 victory points, not per card, but like you have the most rubies, you get 10 points. And whoever has the second most of that particular type will get 5 victory points. Then it's just a process of totaling up all of the victory points that each player has, and whoever has the most points will be the winner. This is a game, as I said, that definitely... and I should say, if there is a tie at the end of the game, whoever has the most mana at that point will be the winner. And if you somehow manage to tie that way, I don't know, have an arm wrestling contest or something. Or cast real spells at each other and see who wins. But regardless... this is a game that, as I said, it combines a great deal of building yourself up and increasing your tableau, increasing those synergies, figuring out that little personal puzzle of yourself, of resource gathering, converting those resources, and using those resources to collect the things that are going to be worth victory points at the end of the game. And it combines that with a great deal of different mechanisms that really allow themselves to shine in many different ways. But let me talk about all of that in my final thoughts right now. All right, so there you go. You should have a real good idea of how Lizard Wizard is played. So just gonna dive into a couple of things really quickly as far as like my personal feelings on the game and like how it plays and what I enjoy about it. So I do like games that make, I've said this in so many reviews, I like games that make me feel smart, right? So if I'm able to capitalize on the fact that I have several different types of conjuring magic type things, and I'm able to cash in with a familiar card that like really allows me to gather like a bunch of gold for that, or I have certain spells that'll capitalize on that, or like the perfect tower shows up that matches up with the last wizard that I was trying to find that tower, and I'm able to snag it before anybody else. Those are like cool, awesome moments that like I really, really enjoy with the game as the game goes. So that's something, this game is filled with those like, I'm smart moments. And anytime a game makes like you feel happy and makes you like feel like, hey, I really pulled that off, I think that's a good game. And I think a lot of games forget about making the players, one, feel like they're important, and two, make them feel like, feel like they're smart, feel like they're getting it, feel like they're grokking the game, right? And when you lack that like, I mean, okay, there's lots of games, I'm kind of all over the place here. There's lots of games where you're like, things just happen to you and then you react to them, right? I mean, so like, rolling a die and I move 5 spaces and I guess I collect that purple thing there or whatever, right? Those games can be fine and dandy or whatever, but there's no real like, oh, I was really smart and clever there, I really figured that out. So when you have a game that has like these different Euro-based mechanisms that kind of rely on like the gamesmanship, as I mentioned, they making sure that gamesmanship is rewarded is very important, and Lizard Wizard does that, and I think like a lot of games lose their way when you're trying to find that aspect of a game. Now, there's so many different things about the game that I really like. I really like the resource. I mean, I like economic games. One of my secret joys is to play 18xx games. I've never really done any videos on those. I've done a few, but not many. But they're tough to get to the table, especially now, of all things. But I mean, I really like deep, engrossing economic games. So like having just a little bit of that economic desire, or that economic game desire that I have, satiated with a game like this, makes me happy, and so that's something I really, really enjoy. I really like the fact that it has a game like this should not have 8 turns and then you're done, because what if like you're just unable to really gain some traction and all of a sudden the game's over and you're just like, oh well, wow, I'm glad you got your 3 wizards you needed to match up with whatever. I mean, I went into the dungeon and I got 2 monsters right away and I got nothing on my turn. I mean, so you have those situations where you don't want to have a set number of turns, because you're not going to allow other players to really get their feet underneath them if one person has like kind of a runaway leader situation. Plus, having the players kind of determine how quickly or how slowly the game will end is something that I feel is very important as well in games like this. So I really like that as well. The artwork is fantastic. The production's going to be fantastic. But if you have purchased any other games from Forbidden Games, you know that as well. I mean, they excel at making really, one, beautiful games, beautiful art, but two, the pieces are just like they go overboard. And there's nothing wrong with having, I mean, a game can still be good with subpar components. But having a really good game with really great components, or a really great game with amazing components, or whatever combination you want there, I mean, that's just like that's the cherry and the sprinkles on top of the whipped cream on top of the really good milkshake. And so that's something I feel that is not exactly lacking, because I mean, I think the expectations on components it has definitely climbed in the last like 6, 7, 8 years of publishing, but it is always nice to know when publishers recognize the fact that they just going the little extra mile to make the game a little more pleasing sitting on the table and make it just more interesting for the players to look at is important. You know, I want to touch on something that's kind of neat, and at this point, like, if I haven't convinced you the game is great, then I guess I don't know what else to say. I mean, the game is really good, but I want to say something really cool here that, like, I can remember, and this has nothing to do with anything, but I want to talk about Glenn Drover as the designer. So, like, one of my, like, favorite games by him is a pretty much unknown game. I think it's called Age of Imperialism. It was a game that he published many years ago. It's kind of a Ameritrashy and what have you, but it's like one of my favorite games. And I remember when I told him that was my favorite game, one of my favorite games by him, he was just like, wow, you know, it's like, he's like, I don't have anybody ever mention that game to me. Which, you know, I think is a shame. But here's the deal, is that I can remember, and this is like a totally different designer. Like, I remember when I first really got into the hobby, I remember I played a game by Bruno Faidutti, and then like 4 or 5 months later, I was playing a game at a convention or something, and I was like, this feels like a Bruno Faidutti game. And then I looked at it and I was like, it is a Bruno Faidutti game, you know. And I was like really proud of myself that, like, I could like connect like that feel, right? Like, this just feels like a game that this designer would make, and I thought that was really cool. So when I told you that quick little story to kind of tell you this other not so quick little story, is that, like, as I played this, I could definitely just feel this was a Glenn Drover game. I mean, and the thing is that, I mean, he's probably best known for Age of Discovery, I think, is the, like, I mean, it was originally called, I'm not gonna be able to remember it now. Somebody in the comments will say something, but like, there was a Age of Empires, or maybe that was like, it was a there was a computer game that Glenn was tasked to make a board game version of that particular game, and then after that kind of that computer game board games like kind of partnership dissolved, he took that Age of Empires game, and I think he made the game called Age of Discoveries, which, you know, might be his best game. I mean, generally conceived to be his best game. And I might be misremembering the name at this point. I mean, that isn't what I consider to be his best game, but I think most people, if you ask them, they would say that is his. But it seems to me that the more of his games that I play, the more I can just tell that it's him. I can tell it's him that designed the game. I can just tell because he just has a certain feel. He has a certain usage of certain mechanisms and certain like synergies. And I've used that word a lot here, but certain synergies of different game elements. And the thing is that I pretty much just know when Glenn makes a game, I'm going to like it. Because of the fact that the way he creates what he creates just seems to fit so well and just hit my little sweet spot for games. And there's only a handful of designers out there for me that are like that. And I think it's pretty cool that I happen to be friends with the guy that is one of those designers. But anyway, there you go. That isn't probably going to affect your feelings about whether or not you're going to buy this or not. But I will challenge you this: like, if you have just started getting into Forbidden games, like, go play Railroad Rivals or go play Raccoon Tycoon, and then play this once you get it, and you'll see what I mean. You'll see that, like, Glenn's just like as he's like gotten. And that sounds like I'm just, like, you know, writing him a giant kiss your butt letter here. But I mean, I think it's cool. And I can say this about a lot of different designers that I've been following for a long time. It's fun to watch them develop themselves as they develop their creation ability, right? And so it's been kind of neat to see this journey that Glenn's been on. But anyway, and Forbidden Games for that matter. So there you go. That is Lizard Wizard. You know, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. You know, tell me what you think. Tell me about certain designers that you have followed and you've enjoyed, and maybe, like, tell me, like, how their games are like, or what have you, or when you've, like, sat down and played a game that you knew nothing about, but then, like, after playing it, you're like, wait a minute, this game is totally like that type of thing. I'd like to hear those stories very much. But anyway, that was Lizard Wizard. go check out the Kickstarter or go check out the Pledge Manager, depending upon when you're watching this, and see if it's something you want to add to your table. Until next time, I was the Undead Viking, or I am the Undead Viking, I should say, and I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Wear a mask, take care of yourselves, take care of your family, and just be the best version of you that you can be every single day, because you don't know how many days you got left, so make the most of them.